This is Adam Bernard with AutoPerspectives, and it's time for a news roundup to look at what was interesting in the auto industry over the past week. Now, it was July 4th last Friday, and so here in North America, it's been a holiday weekend. It was actually a holiday week for a lot of the auto industry as a lot of folks shut down and took some time off, so it was a little quieter than normal, but there were some interesting things worth discussing. Most notably, the new Ferrari Amalfi. Ferrari has a habit of naming their vehicles after interesting parts of the country, and the Amalfi is, of course, named for the Amalfi Coast. It replaces the Roma as the, quote, entry-level Ferrari. The Roma actually ended production last year, so there's been a bit of a gap in the Ferrari portfolio, and it won't go on sale until next year with a Spider convertible expected to follow the coupe that you see here. Yes, it does look a lot like the Roma, but they tell us that all the body panels are new except for the greenhouse. So it is a major rework without being completely new. You get a simple, clean design, no giant air intakes, no intrusive spoilers. Everything's all nice and integrated and discreet. The front end features a wraparound black band inspired by the recently launched F80, and there are air ducts in the headlights to send more air to the turbochargers while also reducing drag. Under the hood is an updated version of the Roma's twin-turbo 3.9-liter V8. It now has a lighter crankshaft and pumps out just a little more power at a pretty impressive 631 and carries over the 8-speed dual-clutch transmission. One of the notable technology adds is brake-by-wire, which is carried over from the 296 GTB and GTS. Inside, a nice update across the board here. That center tunnel that you see is milled from a solid block of aluminum and then anodized. There's a larger central touchscreen, and they did carry over the passenger side display, which a number of Ferraris currently offer. One big change, and this is something you've seen from other automakers, including Volkswagen and Hyundai, is switches and buttons. The previous Ferraris had touch-sensitive switches on the steering wheel, which most people thought were, well, really not very good. And Ferrari acknowledged this was not good. It's not appropriate for the brand. It's certainly not appropriate for a high-performance vehicle where response is very important. So they have replaced those touch-sensitive switches with physical buttons. Even the start button was a touch-sensitive switch. And the bonus to this decision is that this steering wheel can be retrofitted by the dealer to any other current Ferrari. And they actually only need to swap out the center section, so it's not as complicated as you think. So if you did buy a Ferrari in the past few years and would prefer a return to physical buttons on your steering wheel, you are in luck. The overall goal here was to improve accessibility, and Ferrari does note that 50% of the Roma buyers had never driven a Ferrari before. So not only is this the most affordable Ferrari, it is literally an entry-level Ferrari for a lot of Ferrari enthusiasts. Now we'll switch gears to Volkswagen's ID.2. We've seen the ID.2 as a concept, the ID.2 All, and we are expecting to see the production version likely at the Munich Motor Show in September. Volkswagen has the ID.2R in its sights. R is VW's performance division. The current Golf R, for example, sits above the Golf GTI in the VW portfolio. And with the next generation of electric performance vehicles, VW's R performance division is now looking at in-wheel motors for a vehicle that would be positioned above the upcoming ID.2 GTI. Now, this approach is not unlike Renault is doing with the $170,000 Renault 5 Turbo 3E supercar. The ID.2R would not be nearly that expensive. And unlike the Renault, it would actually retain its existing front motor, but then add two rear in-wheel motors for the all-wheel drive. So in-wheel motors, we've seen a couple of automakers dabble in them. You might recall the Lordstown Endurance pickup here in the US. After a few dozen were built, they went out of business, but they did put in-wheel motors into their trucks. The advantages include space saving, fewer parts, better handling and better regenerative braking and lower noise. But in-wheel motors also create some challenges with unsprung weight and the impact on ride, as well as cost and durability. So Volkswagen has said if they can't get the in-wheel motors to work, then they would go back to a conventional rear-mounted motor to augment the front motor. VW is reportedly working with a technical partner in the Balkans who has not yet been identified. And the ID.2R could put out as much as 400 horsepower, which would indeed make it quite the little pocket rocket. And finally, something a little more on the frivolous side. Those of you who know me personally know that I've owned a 1972 Austin Mini 1000 for almost 30 years now. So I'm a big fan of all things Mini, both old and new. And this Maxima Mini that you see here is courtesy of the former head of Jaguar Design, Ian Callum. He retired from the brand a few years ago to set up his own shop, and he's done a number of interesting projects, including a neat little off-road vehicle called the Sky. This is a collaboration with Wood and Pickett. Wood and Pickett was launched in the 1960s, and they did an upscale Mini, which they had badged the Margrave, and by upscale, leather, wood trim, etc. All very nice across the board. And so they decided, even though there is a new Mini on the market, let's see what we can do with the old Mini. So this a Wood and Pickett Mini by Callum uses a Mark V body shell. This was the generation of old Minis produced from 1997 to 2000. And so this was essentially the last generation of Minis that were out there. And you can see it looks very much like the old vehicle. Unlike the David Brown Mini, which you may have seen, it does retain its seams. So a little more of the old school look. But yes, that is LED lighting and uniquely designed wheels and uniquely designed tail lamps as well. Underneath the hood of this Wood and Pickett Mini is a rebuilt 1310cc engine, putting out about 110 horsepower. And for a vehicle that probably weighs around 1,600 pounds, that is pretty darn nice. You get a leather and plaid interior. Because this is a later Mini, you don't get the central mounted instrument pod that you saw in earlier Minis, but you do get obviously some nice wood trim. And yes, there is a little integrated touchscreen there. So I guess tried to make it as discreet as possible. And like David Brown's Mini, this will go for about $100,000. So definitely more than an occasional toy. Definitely something for the 1% who enjoy a fun little small car. And that, believe it or not, is the end of the news for this week. So like I said, not a lot going on. We have a couple of interesting things coming up that we know about this week. So come back in 7 days to listen to what's new. If you like what you see here, please share it, and then visit us at AutoPerspectives.net to learn more about the group. And with that, I will say so long.